The holographic display bathed Captain Alina Rice's office in pale blue light as she replayed the footage for what must have been the 100th time. The asteroid, designated NM2042, appeared as nothing more than a gray smudge against the backdrop of stars, utterly unremarkable except for its trajectory, 30 kilometers per second, mass estimated at 6 billion tons, and absolutely no warning until it was already passing between Earth and the Moon. Alina paused the footage of the closest approach, her fingers hovering over the projected distance marker, 104,000 kilometers, less than a third of the distance to the Moon. "If you keep watching that, you'll give yourself nightmares," said a voice from her doorway. Dr. Katsuo Yamamoto leaned against the frame, his rumpled lab coat suggesting he hadn't left the research facility in days. As the leading authority on deep space observation systems, he'd been the first person Alina had contacted after receiving her appointment. "I already have nightmares," Alina replied, closing the hologram with a swipe. 3 billion casualties if it had been just 5 degrees off course. That's what the impact models show, which is why we're here. Katsuo stepped into the office and placed a tablet on her desk. The quantum entanglement sensor prototype is showing promising results. If we can scale it, we might be able to detect objects at 10 times the distance of current systems. Alina picked up the tablet, scrolling through the data. How long until we have a working model? Conventional timeline. 5 years minimum. The Global Deep Space Monitoring Initiative expects preliminary deployment in 12 months. Alina handed back the tablet. "We need to redefine conventional timeline." Katsuo's expression hardened. "You can't rush quantum coherence, Captain. The mathematics. I've read your papers, Doctor. All of them. Including the one from 3 years ago proposing an alternative stabilization method that everyone dismissed as too resource-intensive." Alina pulled up a new hologram showing budget projections. Resources are no longer our limiting factor. Not after the near miss. Before Katsuo could respond, Alina's communications panel lit up. "Captain Rice, your candidates have arrived," announced her assistant. "Send them in." The door slid open to reveal a diverse group of specialists. The unconventional team Alina had personally selected, ignoring all political pressure to maintain national quotas. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, quantum physicist from Japan, whose theoretical work on entangled particles had earned him both a Nobel Prize and the enmity of several research institutions that considered his methods unorthodox. Dr. Maya Wong, artificial intelligence architect from Singapore, whose neural network designs had been deemed too unpredictable for government applications. Dr. Omar Bashir, computational linguist from Egypt, whose pattern recognition algorithms had revolutionized signal processing. And 5 others, materials scientists, aerospace engineers, and data analysts, all selected not for their nationality or political connections, but for one quality: the ability to think beyond conventional boundaries. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alina said as they filed in, 12 months ago, humanity almost ended without even knowing it was in danger. We've been tasked with ensuring that never happens again. The technology we need doesn't exist yet. We'll have to invent it." She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the solar system with Earth at its center. "Our mission is to extend humanity's senses to the edge of the solar system and beyond, to see what's coming before it arrives. The Global Deep Space Monitoring Initiative has given us unprecedented resources, but also unprecedented expectations." Alina met each person's gaze before continuing. "Many of you were not the preferred candidates of your governments. I selected you anyway. That means we're already making powerful enemies before we've even begun. The project will face opposition, possibly sabotage. But the alternative," she gestured toward the simulation of the asteroid's path, "is unacceptable." 30 months into the project, Alina stood in launch control, her hands gripping the console as the countdown echoed through the room. This was their 3rd attempt. The first satellite had exploded 60 seconds after liftoff, scattering debris across the Pacific. The second had reached orbit, but went dark after half a day, its quantum entanglement nodes destabilizing for reasons they still didn't fully understand. T-10 seconds, announced the launch director. Beside her, Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka muttered equations under his breath, a nervous habit that had become familiar to everyone on the team. His quantum stabilization theories formed the backbone of the entire deep space early warning system. If this launch failed, the project might lose its funding altogether. 5, 4, 3. Alina closed her eyes briefly. They had worked without breaks for the past 96 hours after discovering the quantum interference pattern that doomed the previous attempt. 2, 1. Ignition. The viewing screens showed the rocket lifting from its pad, a pillar of flame pushing against gravity. The room fell silent as they tracked its ascent, each person knowing the critical failure points by heart. 90 seconds passed, beyond where the first launch had failed. Stage 1 separation successful, reported the flight engineer. 4 hours later, the satellite reached its designated orbit. The deployment sequence initiated, unfolding the delicate array of quantum sensors that would form the first node of the DSEWS network. Quantum coherence stable, Hiroshi announced, studying the incoming telemetry. Node is online and operational. A cheer went up around the control room, but Alina merely nodded. One satellite was just the beginning. They needed a network of 48 to achieve minimum coverage of the inner solar system. Celebrate tonight, she told the team. Tomorrow we start building the next one. 2 days later, Alina and Hiroshi huddled in her office, staring at printouts spread across her desk. The satellite was working perfectly, too perfectly, according to Hiroshi. These readings don't make sense, he insisted, pointing to a series of quantum fluctuations. The coherence should be degrading at least minimally over time, but it's actually strengthening. Alina frowned. Could our calibrations be off? I've checked them 3 times. This is... Hiroshi broke off as Alina reached for her coffee mug, accidentally knocking it over. The dark liquid spread across their papers, seeping into the diagrams. I'm sorry, Alina began, grabbing tissues to blot the spill, but Hiroshi held up his hand, staring at the pattern the coffee made as it soaked through the quantum stability charts. Wait, he whispered. Look at this. The coffee had created an interference pattern across the data, revealing something they had missed entirely. The quantum nodes weren't merely maintaining stability. They were resonating with each other at a subatomic level, creating a self-reinforcing field. It's not just coherence, Alina said slowly, seeing what Hiroshi had spotted. They're sensing, which means we don't need 48 satellites, Alina finished. We might be able to do this with 20, maybe fewer. Hiroshi grabbed a clean sheet of paper and began scribbling equations. If we reconfigure the deployment pattern to maximize this resonance effect. 6 months later, the 12th and final satellite of the revised DSEWS array moved into position. Alina sat alone in the dimly lit control center, watching as the system came fully online for the first time. The main display showed their solar system from above, with Earth a tiny blue dot at the center. As the quantum network activated, the screen began populating with thousands of objects. Asteroids, comets, and space debris that conventional detection systems had never registered. The resolution extended all the way to the Kuiper Belt, revealing a cosmic neighborhood far more crowded than humanity had ever realized. My God, Alina whispered, we've been flying blind our entire existence. She reached for the secure communication panel. The world's leaders needed to see this immediately. Humanity had just gained eyes capable of seeing to the edge of the solar system, and what they revealed was both wondrous and terrifying. We're drowning in data, Dr. Maya Wong announced, gesturing toward the wall of displays flickering with constant updates from the DSEWS array. 3 weeks had passed since the system went fully operational, and the quantum sensors were detecting far more objects than anyone had anticipated. Alina studied the scrolling numbers with growing concern. Their most advanced supercomputers were processing at maximum capacity, yet they were analyzing less than 30% of incoming data. Potentially dangerous objects could be missed simply because they couldn't sort through the information fast enough. Our pattern recognition algorithms weren't designed for this volume, Maya continued. We need something more adaptive, something that can learn to prioritize anomalies while filtering out the background noise. You're talking about an AI, Alina said. Maya nodded. Not just any AI. We need something beyond current parameters, something that can think intuitively about spatial relationships across vast distances. The Security Council will never approve an unrestricted AI with access to the entire system, Alina countered. Not after what happened with the Beijing incident. Maya's expression hardened. Then they shouldn't have put a detection system in orbit that sees more than human minds can process. We have two options: limit what DSEWS can detect, or build an intelligence capable of understanding what it's seeing. 3 days later, Alina stood before the Global Security Council, the scrolling feed of unprocessed DSEWS data projected on the wall behind her. Captain Rice, you're proposing to create an artificial intelligence with unprecedented access to Earth's defensive systems, said the Chinese representative, after your own country's autonomous defense networks were compromised just last year. I'm proposing to create a dedicated system that can process data we're currently blind to, Alina replied. Every day, we're ignoring thousands of objects moving through our solar system because we can't analyze what we're detecting. That defeats the entire purpose of DSEWS. The debate raged for hours before a compromise was reached. Alina and Maya would develop their AI, but with strict containment protocols and human oversight at every stage. The system they created was unlike any previous artificial intelligence. Rather than focusing on raw computational power, Maya designed neural pathways that mimicked human intuition, the ability to recognize important patterns from limited information. They named it Guardian, an acronym for Global Understanding and Response Defense Intelligence Analysis Network. It needs to learn, Maya explained as they prepared for the first activation. We'll feed it historical astronomical data first, let it establish baselines for normal object behavior in space. Guardian's learning curve proved steeper than expected. In its first week, it flagged hundreds of false positives, seeing threats in normal asteroid movements and cometary orbits. But by the second week, it had developed a nuanced understanding of celestial mechanics that surpassed many human experts. On the 17th day after activation, at 3:14 a.m., Guardian locked down the entire facility and triggered a maximum security alert. Alina was pulled from sleep by her emergency communicator. What is it? She demanded as she rushed into the control center, still wearing her nightclothes. Maya was already there, staring at the main display where Guardian had isolated a group of objects near the edge of the Kuiper belt. Unlike the random distributions of natural objects, these were moving in a tight formation, their trajectory adjusting in ways that suggested deliberate control. Guardian detected gravitational anomalies consistent with propulsion systems, Maya explained, her voice tight. It tracked them backward and confirmed they originated from outside our solar system. Alina stared at the display, the implications sinking in. You're saying these are ships? Before Maya could answer, Guardian's artificially modulated voice spoke from the room's speakers, its tone calm and measured. Unknown objects maintain formation inconsistent with natural phenomena. Movement patterns indicate technological origin. Objects are decelerating on approach vector to solar system. 97% probability. We are not alone, and they don't know we can see them. 18 hours since detection, and still no public announcement, General Zhao remarked, studying the secure briefing room, where representatives from 12 nations sat in tense silence. On the central display, Guardian tracked the approaching objects as they decelerated toward the outer planets. Because we don't know what we're dealing with yet, Alina replied, her voice steady despite having been awake for nearly 48 hours straight. Guardian has confirmed these are artificial objects using advanced propulsion technology, But we need more information before creating a global panic. The public has a right to know if we're facing an alien invasion, insisted the Brazilian ambassador. We don't know if it's an invasion, Elena countered. Their trajectory and deceleration suggest a controlled approach, not an attack vector. Dr. Omar Bashir cleared his throat. The computational linguist had been running analyses on faint electromagnetic emissions detected from the objects. There appear to be regular patterns in their transmissions, he reported. Not random radiation, but structured signals. I believe they're communicating, though not necessarily with us. Can you decode it? Asked the American Secretary of Defense. Omar shook his head. Not with conventional cryptographic methods, but I've noticed something unusual. Quantum fluctuations embedded within the signal that correspond to mathematical constants. Pi, the fine structure constant, prime number sequences. Universal concepts, Elena said, understanding immediately. Things any technologically advanced species would recognize. Exactly. It's as if the communication method itself is designed to be decipherable across different forms of intelligence. Omar projected a new set of data. With Guardian's help, I've been working on a basic translation framework. General Zhao leaned forward. While you play with alien mathematics, we should be preparing our defenses. I propose immediate deployment of the orbital kinetic platforms. And if they detect our weapons powering up, Elena challenged, we could provoke the very conflict we're trying to avoid. The argument intensified until Guardian's voice interrupted, its tone urgent but controlled. New data analysis complete. Detected objects show signs of structural damage. Propulsion systems operating at reduced efficiency. Radiation signatures indicate power fluctuations consistent with critical systems failure. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They're damaged, Elena said softly. They're not approaching as conquerors. They might be limping. Or it's a deception, General Zhao countered. A wounded predator act to lower our guard. Omar's tablet chimed. Guardian has isolated a repeating pattern in their transmission. It's being broadcast omnidirectionally, not specifically at Earth. He projected the pattern, a series of pulses that formed a distinctive sequence. It's mathematical in structure, but the emotional resonance is unmistakable, Omar explained. This pattern occurs in distress communications across numerous human cultures. Guardian believes with 89% confidence that this is a call for help. Elena turned to face the assembled officials. We have a choice to make. Do we respond as if facing a threat, or do we recognize what might be the first opportunity for humanity to render aid to another intelligent species? Our weapons systems are untested against their technology, General Zhao pointed out. If this is indeed a trap, we may not get a second chance. And if it's not? Elena challenged. If we fire on a damaged vessel sending distress signals, what does that say about humanity? The American secretary raised her hand. What exactly are you proposing, Captain Reyes? Elena took a deep breath. I'm proposing we attempt communication. And if they are indeed in distress, I'm proposing a rescue mission. With what? General Zhao scoffed. We have no vessels capable of reaching the outer solar system in less than years. Elena brought up schematics for a ship design that incorporated the quantum technology developed for DSEWS. Actually, we do, or we will, if you approve the Prometheus project. You want to build an experimental deep space vessel and send it to make first contact with a potentially hostile alien species. The secretary sounded incredulous. Elena met her gaze steadily. If we waited until we were ready, we'd never leave our caves, let alone our planet. Quantum drive initiation in 3, 2, 1. The UEV Prometheus shuddered as the experimental engines engaged, pushing the vessel to velocities no human craft had ever achieved. Elena gripped her command chair, the acceleration pressing her deep into the cushioning despite the inertial dampeners. Around her, the 12-person crew, representing nations that had been enemies just months earlier, monitored systems that existed only as theoretical models before the alien detection. Drive stabilizing, reported Dr. Hiroshi from the engineering station. Quantum field integrity at 94% and holding. The view screen showed the distorted starfield as the Prometheus accelerated to 15% of light speed, slow by science fiction standards, but revolutionary in reality. At this velocity, they would reach the damaged alien vessel in just under 6 months, rather than the years conventional propulsion would require. "Captain, long-range telemetry is coming online," announced Lieutenant Chen, their sensor specialist. DSE's relay is transmitting updated coordinates for the target vessel. The alien craft had continued its deceleration, following a trajectory that would bring it to the orbit of Neptune. The journey gave the crew time to prepare, studying the partial translations that Qardin and Dr. Omar had managed to extract from the alien transmissions. 4 months into the journey, disaster struck. A micrometeoroid, too small for sensors to detect in time, penetrated the ship's outer hull and damaged a critical coolant line for the life support systems. Toxic gases began venting into the recycled atmosphere. "Evacuation protocol. C deck," Elena ordered, sealing bulkheads as alarms blared throughout the ship. 3 crew members were trapped in the affected section, their oxygen supplies rapidly depleting as the environmental systems failed. "The backup systems aren't responding," reported Commander Rodriguez, desperation in his voice. "We've lost remote access to the environmental controls." "How long do they have?" Elena demanded. 17 minutes before oxygen levels become critical." Elena made a swift decision. "I'm going in manually." "Captain," protocol states. "I designed those systems." She cut him off, already moving toward the emergency gear. "I have the best chance of reconfiguring them." Donning a hazard suit, Elena entered the contaminated section. The toxic atmosphere had corroded standard circuitry, rendering remote commands useless. Working against time, she physically rerouted power through emergency channels, bypassing the damaged systems entirely. With seconds to spare, fresh oxygen flooded the compartment, saving the trapped crew members. But the crisis revealed a larger problem. Their communication array had been compromised. The quantum link to Earth flickered and died, leaving them in perfect isolation, continuing toward an alien encounter with no way to report back or receive updated instructions. "We can cannibalize parts from the secondary array to rebuild primary communications," suggested Dr. Hiroshi after assessing the damage. "And if we need those secondary systems later?" asked Commander Rodriguez. "Then we'll address that problem when it arises," Elena replied. "Right now, our priority is restoring contact with Earth." Despite their best efforts, the communication system remained offline. For the next 3 months, the Prometheus traveled in eerie silence, Earth's first deep space vessel now completely cut off from home. When they finally approached the alien craft, its true scale became apparent, nearly a kilometer in length, dwarfing their vessel. The hull shimmered with iridescent patterns that shifted as they approached, responding to their presence in ways that suggested advanced nanotechnology. "Incredible," whispered Dr. Omar over the comm. "The patterns appear to be some form of visual language. The entire ship is communicating." Elena studied the alien vessel through the view screen. "Are they responding to us specifically, or is this an automated response?" "Unknown, but the patterns intensified when we entered scanning range. They know we're here." As the Prometheus maneuvered alongside the massive ship, Elena faced a decision that would define humanity's first direct alien encounter: how to initiate contact with beings who might perceive reality in ways utterly foreign to human experience. "Prepare the boarding team," she ordered. "We came to rescue them, and that's exactly what we're going to do." The boarding team moved through cavernous chambers within the alien vessel, their helmet lights casting long shadows across surfaces that seemed to ripple with color in response to their presence. Elena led the 6-person team, each member chosen for specialized expertise that might prove useful in this unprecedented encounter. "The atmosphere is breathable," reported Dr. Katsuo, analyzing readings from his equipment. oxygen levels slightly higher than Earth standard, trace elements within tolerable parameters for human exposure. Elena nodded but kept her helmet sealed. We maintain containment protocols until we understand more about potential biological interactions. They followed corridors that curved in geometrically perfect spirals, leading deeper into the vessel. The architectural logic felt simultaneously alien and familiar, as if designed by minds that understood universal mathematical principles but applied them through an entirely different perceptual framework. These appear to be hibernation chambers, Dr. Maya suggested as they entered a vast chamber filled with translucent pods. Inside each, they could make out insectoid forms over 2 meters tall, motionless but surrounded by pulsing lights that suggested active life support systems. Hundreds of them, Elena whispered. An entire population in stasis. Dr. Omar approached one of the central consoles, a structure that resembled flowing liquid metal frozen in mid-motion. As he studied the interface, symbols began appearing across its surface, responding to his presence. It's interfacing with our translation software, he explained, watching as Guardian's portable module attempted to decode the alien language. The patterns match fragments we detected in their transmissions. Elena joined him at the console. Can we communicate? Partially. Guardian is establishing basic conceptual mapping between their symbolic language and ours. I think we can attempt to awaken one of them. A tense debate followed about the wisdom of reviving an alien being with no guarantee of peaceful intentions. Eventually, Elena made the decision. We came to rescue them. Let's do exactly that. Following Guardian's translation guidance, they initiated the revival sequence for a single pod. The process took nearly an hour, with the team watching anxiously as the alien within gradually showed signs of increasing biological activity. When the pod finally opened, the being inside unfolded with graceful, deliberate movements. Standing fully erect, it towered over the humans, its exoskeleton shimmering with iridescent colors that shifted in patterns similar to those on the vessel's hull. Visual communication, Dr. Omar realized. The color patterns are part of their language. Guardian processed the shifting colors, attempting to translate. After several tense minutes, the AI produced its first interpretation. Gratitude. Surprise. Query regarding identity. With Guardian's help, they established rudimentary communication. The alien identified herself as Vexreet, a scientist and navigator. As understanding improved, the gravity of her story became clear. Her civilization fled destruction. Dr. Omar translated. They are refugees from a species called, the closest translation is harvesters, methodical conquerors who move from system to system, assimilating technologies and resources, added Guardian, processing Vexreet's complex color speech. Their expansion is calculated and relentless. Elena felt a chill as the implications became clear. Ask her why they came to our solar system specifically. The answer came after a lengthy exchange. They hadn't targeted Earth. Their ship was damaged during escape, and our solar system was simply the closest habitable region within reach of their failing propulsion systems. Their detection technology is far beyond ours, Dr. Hiroshi noted as Vexreet shared technical specifications. Yet they never detected DSEWS observing them. Vexreet's color patterns intensified when Guardian explained how DSEWS functioned. Her reaction prompted rapid consultation with her ship's databases. She's surprised, translated Dr. Omar. She says our approach to quantum entanglement detection should not work according to their understanding of physics. The principles we're exploiting were dismissed by their scientists millennia ago as too unstable for practical application. Elena watched as Vexreet's colors shifted to deep blues and purples. What is she saying now? Dr. Omar looked up from the translator, his expression grave. She says the harvesters are coming. They always pursue refugees, and she says they have a specific blind spot in their detection systems. A gap that our technology, by sheer coincidence, operates precisely within. The Prometheus returned to Earth orbit 18 months after its departure, escorting the massive alien vessel now operating under minimal power. News of their arrival spread globally within hours, despite government attempts to control the information. Humanity had entered a new era, one where they were demonstrably not alone in the universe. Elena stood before the hastily assembled International Space Defense Council, Vexreet towering beside her. The aliens' color patterns shifted calmly as Guardian translated the proceedings. After months of communication, the AI had developed a sophisticated understanding of the aliens' chromographic language. The Harvesters maintain extensive monitoring networks throughout this sector of the galaxy, Elena explained, displaying data shared by Vexreet. According to their records, advanced scout ships could reach our system within 18 months. And you believe these refugees? Asked the Russian delegate, eyeing Vexreet with unconcealed suspicion. We'd verified their historical records against our own astronomical observations, Elena replied. The evidence is consistent with their account of stellar systems being systematically stripped of resources. Dr. Hiroshi stepped forward. What's most significant is how the Harvester's detection technology operates. They use gravitational wave sensing combined with tachyon scanning, both extraordinarily advanced, but both sharing a common blind spot that our quantum entanglement approach inadvertently exploits. Vexreet's colors flashed in rapid sequence as she added her perspective. Guardian translating. Your approach to quantum manipulation was dismissed by our scientists generations ago because it appeared unstable. Yet you created a stable implementation using materials and methods no other species we've encountered would consider viable. It is unorthodox, yet effective. The Council debated for hours before approving an ambitious plan. The expansion of DSEWS into a comprehensive defense network extending throughout the solar system. The project would combine human quantum technology with engineering insights from Vexreet's people. Work began immediately, with construction facilities operating continuously in Earth orbit. Elena led a joint human-alien engineering team, integrating technologies that had evolved along entirely different paths. Your quantum entanglement nodes require constant recalibration, observed one of Vexreet's engineers, its colors conveying professional curiosity. Yet you compensate with adaptive algorithms that our approach never considered. Dr. Maya nodded. Guardian continuously adjusts the network parameters based on performance feedback. We couldn't achieve perfect stability, so we embraced the fluctuations and made them part of the system. Not everyone welcomed the collaboration. 3 months into the project, saboteurs detonated an explosive device on the main construction platform. Elena and Vexreet were inspecting the section when the blast occurred. Both were seriously injured, Elena with multiple fractures and Vexreet suffering damage to her exoskeleton that human medical technology struggled to treat. From her hospital bed, Elena continued directing the project via secure communications. The attack had an unexpected effect. Seeing both human and alien working together and suffering together generated a wave of public support that overwhelmed the fearmongers. Your species contains profound contradictions, Vexreet communicated from her specialized medical chamber, her colors muted but clear, capable of both senseless destruction and extraordinary cooperation. Elena managed a smile despite her injuries. That's why we need the defense network, to give the better parts of our nature time to prevail. Progress accelerated after the attack. The hybrid technology created a detection grid far more comprehensive than either species could have developed alone. When the first full system test was conducted, Guardian announced results that exceeded all projections. The network could track objects moving at near-light speeds, anywhere within 5 light-years of Sol, a feat Vexreet's more advanced civilization had deemed theoretically impossible. Then came the discovery that changed everything. During calibration of the outer detection perimeter, Guardian identified 3 objects with the precise gravitational and energy signatures Vexreet had described. Harvester scout ships, Elena whispered as the data appeared on her screen, already approaching the heliopause. With growing horror, she realized they hadn't been building an early warning system after all. They'd been building humanity's last line of defense, and it would be tested far sooner than anyone had expected. "They're using some form of space-time distortion," Dr. Hiroshi reported, studying the data streaming from the enhanced DSEWS network, bending light and gravity around their vessels to create a stealth field. Alina watched the main display where Guardian tracked the 3 Harvester scout ships with unprecedented precision. The vessels appeared as phantom echoes to conventional sensors, but the quantum entanglement nodes of DSEWS penetrated their concealment completely. "Can they detect that we're tracking them?" asked Admiral Cheng, who commanded Earth's hastily assembled defense fleet, a collection of vessels from 12 nations retrofitted with hybrid technology based on Vexreet's knowledge. "Negative," Alina replied. According to Vexreet, their sensor systems don't register quantum entanglement patterns. To them, it's just background noise. This single advantage had shaped their defense strategy. Earth's fleet was objectively primitive compared to Harvester technology, but they possessed perfect battlefield awareness, while their opponents were effectively blind to their precise positions. "They're following a standard approach vector," Vexreet communicated, her colors shifting with urgency as she studied the tactical display. "First scouts, then extraction vessels, finally processors. They have never encountered resistance at this stage before." The plan was audacious: allow the scouts to reach Neptune's orbit, then surround them completely, demonstrating Earth's detection capabilities and overwhelming force simultaneously. The goal wasn't to win a protracted conflict, but to make the cost of invasion prohibitively high. As the Harvester vessels crossed the detection threshold, Admiral Cheng gave the order. Earth's ships, hiding within Neptune's rings and behind its moons, activated their engines simultaneously, moving to encircle the intruders. "They're altering course," reported the tactical officer. "They've detected our drive signatures." Alina watched as the Harvesters executed a flawless evasive maneuver, their technology allowing for acceleration that would have liquefied human crews. But Guardian anticipated the move, updating the fleet's intercept coordinates before the Harvesters had completed their turn. "They're adapting," Vexreet observed, attempting to analyze our tracking method. The Harvester vessels suddenly split up, each taking a different vector, clearly testing the limits of Earth's tracking capabilities. Guardian responded by splitting the defense fleet into 3 coordinated groups, maintaining the tactical advantage. "They're scanning actively now," Dr. Maya reported, probing our communications. Alina recognized the critical moment. "Execute Phase 2. Guardian initiated the deception protocol they had prepared, a complex algorithm that fed false targeting data into the Harvester's weapon systems by precisely mimicking their own sensor frequencies. When the lead Harvester vessel fired what should have been a precision strike against Earth's flagship, the energy beam passed harmlessly through empty space. "Direct hit on their propulsion systems," Admiral Cheng announced as Earth's fleet returned fire, their weapons guided by DSEWS with perfect accuracy. The damaged Harvester ship attempted to rally the others, but their coordinated defense relied on sensor data now thoroughly compromised by Guardian's electronic warfare. For perhaps the first time in their long history of conquest, the Harvesters faced an enemy they couldn't accurately target while being unable to hide themselves. After a tense 30 minutes of maneuvering and strategic strikes, the 3 scout ships broke formation and accelerated away from the solar system, their retreat vectors designed to prevent pursuit. "They'll return with reinforcements," Vexreet warned, her colors solemn. "But not immediately," Alina replied. "They'll need to analyze what happened, develop countermeasures. That gives us time." In the decades that followed, Earth became something unprecedented, a sanctuary for species fleeing Harvester expansion. Each brought their own technologies and perspectives, integrating with the growing coalition centered around humanity's unorthodox approaches to physics and engineering. The deep space early warning system evolved into something far beyond its original purpose, becoming the foundation of a defensive perimeter protecting dozens of refugee species. Earth, the youngest, least advanced civilization of them all, served as the unlikely guardian of their corner of the galaxy. On the 20th anniversary of what became known as the Neptune encounter, Alina Reyes, now in her 60s, addressed a graduating class of engineers from Earth's first interspecies technical academy. Looking out at the diverse faces, human, insectoid, and forms beyond easy categorization, she reflected on the journey that began with a near-miss asteroid. "We looked to the stars expecting to find destruction," she told them, "and instead found our purpose.